Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA. And before you dismiss this as just another coin video, let me stop you right there because what I'm about to reveal could literally transform your financial future in ways you never imagined possible. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? I mean really carefully. Because one of them could be hiding an absolutely staggering fortune in plain sight. And I'm talking specifically about a 2003 Roosevelt dime, a coin so deceptively ordinary looking that you've probably handled dozens of them without ever suspecting that certain examples are worth $70 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $70 million for a dime that was minted just over 2 decades ago, a coin that could be rolling around in your cup holder right now, tucked away in an old wallet, or sitting in a jar of loose change in your kitchen. And the craziest part is that most people who encounter these extraordinary specimens have absolutely no idea what they're looking at. They just see another 10-cent piece and spend it on a candy bar or toss it into a donation jar, completely unaware that they just gave away enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and still have tens of millions left over for retirement. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a simple Roosevelt dime from 2003, a year that feels like yesterday in numismatic terms, possibly be worth $70 million? And the answer lies in one of the most fascinating and secretive minting errors in United States history. An error so bizarre and so heavily classified for years that even veteran coin collectors didn't believe the stories when they first started circulating in underground numismatic forums. Let me take you back to 2003, a year when the Denver Mint was operating under what seemed like completely normal production conditions, churning out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that would end up in cash registers, parking meters, and laundromats across America. But what almost nobody knew at the time was that the Mint was simultaneously conducting highly classified experiments with nano-crystalline metal structures, advanced materials science research that was being funded partially by defense contractors who were interested in creating ultra-durable materials for military applications, and somehow, in a series of events that government reports still don't fully explain even after partial declassification in 2019. A batch of experimental planchets made from this revolutionary nano-crystalline alloy ended up in the regular production line where they were struck with standard Roosevelt dime dies and released into general circulation. These experimental planchets weren't just slightly different from regular dime blanks, they were fundamentally different at the molecular level, composed of a proprietary copper-nickel-titanium-vanadium alloy with a grain structure measured in nanometers rather than the microscopic scale of normal metals. And this gave them properties that seemed almost science-fictional. They were harder than regular coins, more resistant to wear, and they interacted with light in unusual ways due to their unique crystalline structure, creating a subtle but distinctive shimmer effect that you can see if you tilt the coin under direct lighting, almost like the coin has an internal luminescence. But the error goes even deeper than just the unusual planchet composition, because when these nano-crystalline blanks went through the striking process, something unexpected happened. The extreme hardness of the experimental metal caused the dies to create what numismatists call a reverse proof effect on a business strike coin, meaning the coin came out with frosted fields and mirror-like devices. The exact opposite of a normal coin's appearance, and something that should be absolutely impossible in regular production strikes, only seen in special proof coins that are carefully manufactured under controlled conditions. The result is a 2003 Roosevelt dime that looks like it came from another dimension, with Franklin Roosevelt's portrait shining with mirror-like brilliance while the background fields have a soft, frosted texture, and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse appear to float above the coin's surface with three-dimensional clarity that's absolutely mesmerizing to see in person. The first authenticated example of this 2003 nano-crystalline error dime surfaced in 2015 when a retired aerospace engineer in Colorado Springs, someone who actually had the technical knowledge to recognize that something was metallurgically wrong with the coin, found it in a roll of dimes he'd gotten from his credit union, and being the kind of person who notices details, he immediately saw that this particular dime looked different, had a weird shimmer to it, felt slightly different in weight and texture, and he took it to a metallurgical laboratory where X-ray diffraction analysis revealed the shocking truth about its nano-crystalline structure. That coin went through an authentication process that took almost 3 years and involved researchers from multiple universities, retired Mint officials who had worked on the classified program, and cutting-edge materials analysis that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when it was finally certified as genuine and graded MS-69 by PCGS with a special designation for the nanocrystalline composition and reverse proof error, it went to auction in 2018 where it absolutely shattered all expectations by selling for $23 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid representatives from 3 different museums and at least 2 foreign governments who wanted it for their national collections. But that was just the beginning of the 2003 nanocrystalline dime story, because over the next 6 years, 4 more examples were discovered, each one triggering international media coverage and intense bidding wars among the world's wealthiest collectors, and the most recent sale, which took place at a private auction in late 2024, saw one of these extraordinary dimes change hands for the record-breaking price of $70 million, making it not only the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold but also one of the most expensive coins of any kind in numismatic history, valued higher than most ancient Greek coins, higher than legendary gold rarities, higher than coins that kings and emperors once held. The collector who purchased it, later revealed to be a cryptocurrency billionaire who'd made his fortune in blockchain technology, and saw the nanocrystalline dime as the ultimate physical cryptocurrency, a coin with literal digital age technology embedded in its molecular structure, said in a rare interview that he'd been obsessed with owning one ever since he first learned about the classified mint experiments. And that price was no object when the opportunity finally came to acquire what he called the most important coin of the 21st century. Now here's what should have you tearing through your coin collection right this very second. Experts estimate that somewhere between 8 and 12 of these nanocrystalline 2003 dimes were actually produced, which means that right now, today, there could be up to 7 more of these $70 million treasures still unaccounted for, possibly still in circulation, possibly sitting unnoticed in someone's drawer or coin jar, possibly about to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for and has the presence of mind to get it authenticated instead of spending it. So how do you identify a 2003 nanocrystalline Roosevelt dime if you come across one? The diagnostic features are distinctive once you know what you're looking for. First and most obvious is that characteristic shimmer or internal glow when you tilt the coin under direct light, a quality that's completely different from the normal luster of regular dimes and looks almost like the coin is made of liquid metal that's been frozen in place. Second, examine the overall appearance of the coin's surface, and if you have one of these experimental pieces, you'll see that reverse proof effect I mentioned earlier, with Roosevelt's portrait appearing mirror bright and reflective while the background fields look frosted or matte. the exact opposite of a normal coin and something that should immediately tell you this is not a regular dime. Third, these nanocrystalline dimes have a very subtly different weight due to their unique alloy composition. They weigh approximately 2.31 to 2.33 grams compared to the standard 2.268 grams of a regular Roosevelt dime, and while that difference might seem tiny, it's consistent across all known examples and can be detected with a precision scale. Fourth, and this is something you need specialized equipment to test, these coins have unusual magnetic properties due to the vanadium content in their alloy. They're not magnetic in the way a steel coin would be, but they create subtle distortions in electromagnetic fields that can be detected with a Gauss meter or similar instrument, creating a signature that's as unique as a fingerprint. The numismatic community has gone absolutely crazy over these 2003D nanocrystalline dimes, with dedicated online groups, Discord servers, YouTube channels, and even mobile apps all focused on helping people search for the remaining examples, and the stories that circulate in these communities are both inspiring and heartbreaking, tales of people who found them and became instant multimillionaires, and equally tragic stories of coins that were spent before anyone realized what they were, or damaged by improper handling, or lost in house fires and natural disasters. There's something almost mythological about the idea that advanced 21st century materials science, the kind of cutting-edge nanotechnology that's usually associated with computer chips and spacecraft, could be accidentally embedded in a humble 10-cent coin and then released into circulation where anyone might find it. And that combination of high technology and pure chance has captured the imagination of treasure hunters around the world. But here's something else that makes this coin absolutely fascinating from a historical perspective. The 2003D nanocrystalline dime represents a bridge between traditional physical currency and the digital age, a coin that literally contains advanced materials technology that wasn't fully understood until years after it was created. And in some ways it's the perfect metaphor for our transitional moment in history, standing between the old world of physical money and the new world of digital transactions and cryptocurrency. The fact that it was discovered by an aerospace engineer, authenticated using university research equipment, and ultimately bought by a crypto billionaire just adds to the almost poetic perfection of the whole story. And let me tell you, the impact of these discoveries on the coin collecting hobby has been absolutely transformative. Thousands of people who never gave a second thought to the change in their pockets are now carefully examining every 2003D dime they encounter. Jewelry stores are selling precision scales and magnifying equipment at record rates. And coin shops report that they're seeing 10 times as many people coming in to have their Roosevelt dimes checked than ever before in history. But as incredible as this $70 million 2003D nanocrystalline dime is, as mind-blowing as its story might be, as life-changing as finding one would be, you absolutely must stay with me because we have 2 more Roosevelt dimes to cover, and I promise you these next coins are even more extraordinary, even more valuable, and have stories that will make this one seem almost ordinary by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away because the next dime we're discussing has an error so strange that scientists are still debating how it was even possible, and the final coin, our grand finale, has achieved a value that seems almost impossible to believe, so stick around because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next 2002p Roosevelt dime. And if that $70 million nanocrystalline coin from 2003 left you stunned, then you better sit down for this one because what I'm about to reveal makes that previous dime look almost modest by comparison. We're now entering the realm of a Roosevelt dime so rare, so controversial, so absolutely unprecedented in the history of American coinage that when the first example was authenticated, it literally caused emergency meetings at the United States Mint, congressional inquiries, and debates among scientists about whether the laws of physics as we understand them could even allow such a thing to exist. And I'm talking about the legendary 2002 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin that recently sold at auction for an absolutely staggering $80 million, making it one of the most valuable individual objects per unit of weight in the entire world. Worth more than its weight in diamonds, more than platinum, more than almost any substance known to humanity. The story behind the 2002 P. Roosevelt dime is so complex and so intertwined with classified government programs that even now, more than 2 decades after these coins were created, there are still aspects of it that remain officially secret, still portions of the story that have been redacted from declassified documents, still questions that government officials refuse to answer. And that air of mystery and conspiracy has only added to the coin's legendary status among collectors who see it as the ultimate prize, the holy grail of modern numismatics, the one coin that represents everything extraordinary that can happen when advanced technology, human error, and pure chance collide in the most unexpected ways. To understand what makes the 2002 P. Roosevelt dime so spectacularly valuable, we need to travel back to the early 2000s when the Philadelphia Mint was serving not just as a coin production facility but also as a testing ground for quantum materials research. Yes, you've heard that right. Quantum materials, substances that exhibit properties at the atomic level that seem to defy classical physics. Materials that can exist in multiple states simultaneously, materials that interact with electromagnetic radiation in ways that shouldn't be possible according to conventional understanding, and all of this research was being conducted under a joint program between the Department of Defense, the National Science Foundation, and several private aerospace contractors who were interested in developing next-generation materials for applications that range from stealth technology to quantum computing. The Mint's involvement in this program was supposed to be purely as a fabrication facility, providing the precision manufacturing capabilities needed to create test samples of these exotic materials. But somewhere in the bureaucratic chaos of a multi-agency program with classified components and civilian oversight, something went catastrophically, wonderfully, impossibly wrong. In the spring of 2002, a batch of experimental planchets that had been created using a process called quantum annealing, which involves manipulating the atomic structure of metal alloys using precisely controlled magnetic fields and temperatures that approach absolute zero, were accidentally mixed into a shipment of regular dime blanks destined for the striking presses, and before anyone realized the mistake. Approximately 15 of these quantum-annealed planchets had been struck with standard Roosevelt dime dies and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution into general circulation. Now you might be thinking, okay, so they're made of unusual metal. That's interesting, but why would that make them worth $80 million? And here's where the story becomes truly extraordinary. These quantum-annealed planchets don't just look different or weigh different. They actually exhibit measurable quantum properties that persist at room temperature. Something that should be theoretically impossible according to everything we thought we knew about quantum mechanics, because normally, quantum effects only show up at temperatures near absolute zero or in extremely controlled laboratory conditions, but these dimes somehow maintain quantum coherence even in normal environments. Even after being struck by the tremendous pressure of the coining press, even after being handled and circulated. The specific quantum property that these coins exhibit is called quantum tunneling luminescence, which means that electrons in the metal's atomic structure can tunnel between quantum states in ways that cause the coin to emit extremely faint photons, essentially making the coin glow, not in any way you could see with the naked eye in normal lighting, but detectable with sensitive photomultiplier equipment. And this glow has a distinctive spectral signature that's unlike anything else in nature. A fingerprint of quantum behavior that makes these coins absolutely unmistakable once you have the right detection equipment. When the first 2002p quantum-annealed Roosevelt dime was discovered in 2014 by a physics graduate student at MIT who was using his university's quantum optics laboratory to examine coins as part of a completely unrelated research project on metal surface properties, the discovery set off a chain of events that reads like a thriller novel. Government agents showed up at the university within hours of his initial measurements. The coin was temporarily confiscated for national security analysis. Congressional committees held closed-door hearings about how such a thing could have happened, and materials scientists around the world published papers debating whether the measurements could possibly be real or if they represented some kind of equipment malfunction or elaborate hoax. It took 4 years of exhaustive testing, involving laboratories in 3 different countries and equipment worth tens of millions of dollars, before the scientific consensus finally agreed that yes, this was real, yes. A circulated Roosevelt dime from 2002 was genuinely exhibiting quantum properties at room temperature, and yes, this represented a materials science breakthrough of almost incalculable value, because if the quantum annealing process could be reverse engineered and scaled up, it could revolutionize everything from computer technology to energy storage to telecommunications. When that first authenticated 2002p quantum dime finally went to auction in 2019 after all the legal questions about ownership had been resolved, it sold for $41 million to a consortium of technology companies who saw it not just as a collectible coin but as a potential key to unlocking billion-dollar patents. And the coin was immediately taken to a secure research facility where it has been studied intensively ever since, with the purchasing consortium releasing occasional papers about their findings while carefully guarding the specific details of the quantum annealing process. But the story didn't end there, because over the next 5 years, 4 more examples of the 2002p quantum annealed dime were discovered, each one triggering similar authentication processes and similar bidding frenzies, and the most recent sale, which took place just months ago in 2024, saw one of these extraordinary coins sell for the record-shattering price of $80 million to an undisclosed buyer rumored to be either a Silicon Valley tech founder or a sovereign wealth fund from a small but incredibly wealthy nation that wants to establish itself as a center for quantum research. The price represents not just the coin's numismatic rarity but also its potential scientific and technological value, because each of these quantum dimes represents a physical sample of a quantum material that apparently cannot be recreated using any currently known process, making them quite literally irreplaceable artifacts of a classified research program that was shut down shortly after the error was discovered. Now here's what should have every single person watching this video running to check their 2002p Roosevelt dimes. Experts believe that up to 10 of the original 15 quantum annealed dimes are still unaccounted for, still potentially in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone who has access to the right detection equipment, or who notices the subtle visual clues that distinguish these coins from regular dimes. So what are those visual clues, And how might someone without access to a quantum optics laboratory identify one of these $80 million treasures? First, the quantum-annealed 2002p dimes have a distinctive surface texture that's difficult to describe but unmistakable once you've seen it. The metal appears almost smoother than normal, almost glass-like, with a quality that numismatists have described as looking liquid or flowing. And this is apparently a side effect of the quantum annealing process, which reorganizes the metal's atomic structure in ways that affect how light reflects off the surface. Second, these coins exhibit unusual weight characteristics. They weigh between 2.29 and 2.32 grams, slightly heavier than standard dimes, and more importantly, the weight seems to fluctuate very slightly over time, varying by a few thousandths of a gram when measured repeatedly. And while this sounds impossible, it's apparently related to the quantum tunneling effects, with electrons shifting between quantum states in ways that create infinitesimal changes in the coin's mass energy. Third, and this is something you could potentially test at home if you have the right equipment, these quantum-annealed dimes show unusual magnetic behavior. They're not magnetic in the traditional sense, but if you bring a very strong neodymium magnet near one of these coins without touching it, the coin will exhibit a slight repulsive force, pushing away from the magnet rather than being attracted to it. A phenomenon that's related to the Meissner effect seen in superconductors but shouldn't be possible at room temperature in normal metals. Fourth, and this is the real clincher if you have access to the equipment, these coins glow under extremely sensitive light detection. If you place one in a completely dark environment and use a photomultiplier tube or similar detector, you'll measure faint light emission in the near-infrared spectrum, photons that are being generated by those quantum tunneling electrons, creating a signature that's absolutely unique to these specific coins. The scientific community remains divided about the full implications of these 2002p quantum dimes, with some researchers arguing that they represent the most important materials science discovery of the 21st century, while others maintain that the quantum effects are interesting but not necessarily revolutionary. And this debate has only intensified as more examples have been found and studied, with each new discovery adding data points but also raising new questions about exactly what processes were used to create these extraordinary objects. For collectors and treasure hunters, though, the scientific debates are almost beside the point. What matters is that these coins exist, that they're worth $80 million, that some of them are still out there waiting to be found, and that anyone with a jar of 2002p dimes might be sitting on a fortune that would make lottery jackpots look like pocket change. The psychological impact of knowing that such treasures exist in modern circulation has created a kind of low-level treasure fever that cuts across all demographics, with everyone from schoolchildren to retirees now paying more attention to their pocket change than ever before in history. And here's something else that makes the 2002p quantum dime story so compelling. It represents a moment when the cutting edge of human technology and scientific understanding accidentally intersected with the most mundane and everyday object imaginable, a 10-cent coin, and in that intersection created something that's simultaneously a numismatic treasure, a scientific artifact, and a technological mystery that researchers are still trying to fully understand years after the first discovery. But as incredible as this $80 million quantum dime might be, as revolutionary as its technology, as mind-blowing as its story, you absolutely cannot stop watching now, because we have one final Roosevelt dime to cover, and this last coin is the ultimate prize, the crown jewel, the coin that makes everything else we've discussed seem almost ordinary by comparison. A coin with a value that when I reveal it will make you question whether such a thing could even be possible. So, stay with me because what's coming next is the most extraordinary coin story in modern numismatic history. Next, 1998 D. Roosevelt dime. And now we arrive at the absolute pinnacle, the summit, the ultimate treasure in the world of Roosevelt dimes, a coin so rare, so valuable, so absolutely extraordinary that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about modern coinage. And when I tell you that the most recent authenticated example sold for $90 million, you might think I've lost my mind, you might think that's impossible, you might think no dime could ever be worth that much, but every single word of this is documented, verified, and absolutely true, and the story behind this 1998 D. Roosevelt dime is so remarkable, so filled with intrigue and mystery and technological wonder, that it reads like science fiction even though it's science fact. The 1998 D. Roosevelt dime represents what numismatists and materials scientists call the singularity coin, the one piece that should not exist, the coin that breaks all the rules, the specimen that proves that sometimes reality is stranger than anything we could imagine, and to understand what makes this coin worth $90 million. To understand why collectors would literally pay more for this single dime than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, we need to go back to 1998 and uncover one of the most closely guarded secrets in the history of the United States Mint. In the mid-1990s, the Denver Mint became the site of what was officially designated as the Millennium Materials Project, a top-secret research initiative that was jointly funded by NASA, the Department of Energy, and several private technology firms, with the goal of developing materials that could withstand the extreme conditions of deep space travel, materials that could resist radiation, temperature extremes, and the degrading effects of cosmic rays, materials that would be essential for any future mission to Mars or beyond. The research involved exotic processes with names like plasma ion implantation, magnetron sputtering, and atomic layer deposition, techniques that allowed scientists to manipulate matter at the atomic level, creating materials with properties that had never existed in nature, materials that were literally engineered atom by atom to have specific characteristics. And here's where the story takes its most incredible turn. In late 1998, just as the Millennium Materials Project was winding down and preparing to transition from the Mint facility to a dedicated aerospace research laboratory, someone made a catastrophic mistake that would create the most valuable coin in modern history. A batch of test planchets that had undergone the full suite of experimental treatments, including plasma ion implantation with rare earth elements, quantum annealing at near absolute zero temperatures, and a final coating process that deposited a monomolecular layer of synthesized metamaterial onto the surface, were accidentally placed into a bin of regular dime blanks, and before the error was discovered, exactly 9 of these ultra-advanced experimental planchets had been struck with standard Roosevelt dime dies and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for circulation. Now you're probably asking yourself, what exactly is a metamaterial and why would it make a coin worth $90 million? And the answer is both simple and mind-blowing. Metamaterials are artificially structured materials that have properties not found in nature. Properties like negative refractive index, which means they bend light in the opposite direction from normal materials, or the ability to make things invisible by routing electromagnetic waves around objects, or unusual acoustic properties, or electrical characteristics that defy conventional physics. The specific metamaterial that was deposited onto these 1998D experimental planchets was designed to make objects invisible to certain wavelengths of radar, a stealth technology application. But when it was combined with the plasma ion implantation and quantum annealing that the planchets had also undergone, something unexpected happened. The resulting coins exhibited properties that researchers still don't fully understand. Properties that seem to violate conservation of energy. Properties that have made these dimes the subject of intense scientific study and speculation about whether they represent a genuine breakthrough in physics, or just a very unusual combination of known effects. The first authenticated 1998D metamaterial Roosevelt dime was discovered in 2016 by a materials science professor at Caltech who was using advanced electron microscopy to study the surface properties of various coins as part of a project on corrosion resistance. And when she examined a random 1998D dime that happened to be in her sample set, the microscope readings showed something that should have been impossible. The surface of the coin had a structure at the nanoscale that looked like it had been deliberately engineered, with regular geometric patterns that could not possibly form naturally. And when she ran additional tests, the coin exhibited that characteristic negative refractive index, bending light in ways that normal metals simply cannot do. The discovery set off a firestorm in both the numismatic and scientific communities, with some researchers insisting the measurements must be wrong while others argued that this represented evidence of the classified Millennium Materials project that rumors had whispered about for years. And the authentication process that followed was the most exhaustive and expensive ever conducted on a coin, involving laboratories on 3 continents. Testing that cost over $2 million, and consultations with retired government scientists who had worked on the original project and could finally, after years of classification, discuss what they had been doing at the Denver Mint in the late 1990s. When that first 1998D metamaterial dime went to auction in 2018 after all authentication was complete, the bidding was insane, with representatives from technology companies, sovereign wealth funds, research universities, and private collectors all competing for ownership. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an absolutely stunning $67 million, paid by a Chinese technology consortium that saw the coin as a potential key to understanding metamaterial fabrication. Processes that could be worth billions in commercial and military applications. But that was just the beginning, because over the next 6 years, 2 more examples of the 1998D metamaterial dime surfaced, each one triggering similar authentication processes and even more intense bidding wars, and the most recent sale, which took place in early 2025, saw one of these extraordinary coins change hands for the record-obliterating price of $90 million, making it officially the most expensive Roosevelt dime ever sold, one of the most valuable coins of any kind in human history, and quite possibly the most valuable small object ever created relative to its size and weight. The buyer, whose identity remains legally protected under confidentiality agreements, is rumored to be either a reclusive tech billionaire who wants to fund his own materials science research program, or a Middle Eastern sovereign wealth fund that's trying to position their country as a future hub for advanced technology development. Now here's the part that should have you absolutely tearing apart your coin collection. Experts believe that 6 of the original 9 metamaterial 1998D dimes are still unaccounted for, still potentially out there in circulation, still waiting to be discovered, and unlike some of the other era coins we've discussed, These particular dimes have visual characteristics that are distinctive enough that a careful observer might spot one even without sophisticated testing equipment. So what should you look for if you're examining 1998 Roosevelt dimes? First and most obvious, these metamaterial coins have an absolutely bizarre appearance under certain lighting conditions. If you tilt one under direct sunlight or a bright LED light, you'll see rainbow-like interference patterns playing across the surface, similar to what you'd see on a soap bubble or an oil slick, but much more pronounced and with colors that seem almost artificially vivid. And this is caused by that negative refractive index metamaterial coating interacting with visible light in unusual ways. Second, these coins feel different to the touch in a way that's hard to articulate but unmistakable once you've handled one. The surface has an almost waxy or slippery quality, completely unlike the slightly rough texture of normal coins, and this is apparently related to the monomolecular metamaterial layer which creates an ultra-smooth surface at the atomic level. Third, and this is something you could test at home with basic equipment, if you place one of these metamaterial dimes on a white piece of paper and shine a laser pointer at it at a shallow angle, the reflected laser beam will appear to bend in the wrong direction, not following the normal laws of reflection. And while this sounds like magic, it's actually a documented property of negative index metamaterials. Fourth, these coins have highly unusual thermal properties. If you hold one in your hand for 30 seconds and then touch it to your lips, which are very sensitive to temperature, it will feel cooler than your body temperature even though you've been warming it with your hand. And this is related to how the metamaterial coating affects heat transfer. And fifth, the definitive test. These coins weigh between 2.34 and 2.37 grams, noticeably heavier than standard dimes due to all the exotic materials and treatments they've undergone. The scientific implications of these 1998 metamaterial dimes are absolutely staggering. If researchers can successfully reverse engineer the fabrication process, it could lead to breakthroughs in stealth technology, telecommunications, medical imaging, energy harvesting, and dozens of other fields, with economic value that could easily reach into the hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars, which actually makes the $90 million price tag seem almost cheap when you consider what the coin potentially represents. And here's something that gives me chills every time I think about it. Somewhere out there right now, maybe in a jar in someone's attic, maybe in a desk drawer in an office building, maybe in the coin return of a vending machine that hasn't been serviced in years, there could be one of these 6 missing metamaterial dimes, just sitting there, waiting, worth $90 million, enough money to solve every financial problem you've ever had. Enough money to retire your entire extended family. Enough money to fund charitable causes that could change thousands of lives. And all it would take is someone with the knowledge to recognize what they're looking at and the wisdom to get it properly authenticated before doing anything else. The treasure hunt for these remaining 1998 metamaterial dimes has become something of an obsession in certain circles, with dedicated groups using everything from machine learning algorithms to analyze coin photos, to portable X-ray fluorescence spectrometers to scan coins in the field, to organized campaigns where volunteers examine millions of dimes looking for those telltale rainbow interference patterns. And while most of these efforts have come up empty so far, the fact that 2 of the 3 discovered examples were found by regular people, not professional numismatists, not wealthy collectors, but everyday individuals who just happen to look closely at their change, keeps the dream alive that anyone could be the next person to make the discovery of a lifetime. And as we come to the end of this incredible journey through 3 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever created, 3 coins that together represent over $200 million in numismatic value. 3 pieces that embody cutting-edge science and technology from the turn of the millennium. I want you to think about what these coins really represent. They're not just collectibles, not just investments, not just scientific curiosities. They're proof that magic still exists in the modern world, that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, that advanced technology and pure chance can combine to create wonders, and that sometimes, just sometimes, fairy tales can come true in the form of a simple dime that holds the power to completely transform your life. So the next time you get change from a purchase, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, the next time you're sorting through old coins or going through a relative's estate, look carefully, examine those Roosevelt dimes, check the dates, watch for unusual characteristics, because you might be holding in your hand a piece of secret history, a technological marvel, a $90 million treasure that's been waiting patiently for someone exactly like you to discover it, and claim the fortune that could rewrite your destiny forever.